to the Girl Sis Man podcast. For the girls we were,
for the sisters we became,
and the women we're becoming.
It took one time! I was practicing.
I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud
I am dedicated to you guys. I'm dedicated to this podcast and our tagline. Like I said, dedicated.
We love it. We love the dedication. Girl, so how have you been?
I've been busy, school, work. I'm still taking my Portuguese lessons. I took it this morning.
I am so, to this day, okay, so if y'all don't know, Lola's been taking Portuguese on this thing on an app called italki, right?
Yeah, super cool. I've been obsessed with Brazilian culture for the longest time, and everyone's like, why? And I'm like, I just think it's cool. So since May of this year, I've been taking Portuguese lessons with this young woman. Her name is Mariana. She lives in Rússia, how they say in Portuguese, and I just kind of got back to it. This is my third lesson in a row since I took a hiatus because of school, so I can say little things here and there. I can say bom dia meninas, which means good morning girls. Eu nome é Paola, eu tenho 26 anos, eu moro em Conérico, mas minha cidade de Natal é Nova York, which means my hometown is New York, but I live
My name is Paola. I'm 26 years old. I live in Connecticut, but I'm from New York. Did I get it?
Yes, you did.
Yay! So you know what, y'all? We might just start switching it up on y'all. Just start greeting y'all in different languages.
We should. I speak Spanish. You speak Creole. You could speak a little French. A little
finagle y'all a little bit. No, but I want to do italki lessons because I want to get the grammar down. I want to get all the things down, and I feel like it's so affordable.
Please do. And if you do it, I can give you a coupon code, and they give you a discount to me and you.
Look at that. Well, this is not even a paid ad, y'all. This is really us being so interested in this.
I'm obsessed with it. It's, like I said, it's not, I wouldn't say it's cheap, but I think it's worth the investment, and it's not breaking the bank. So I'm super happy, and I'm learning something new. So,
But that's what I feel like people should be doing, is doing things that they love to do and having the funds to do them. Which brings us to today's topic, which is, can you actually afford your best life? So can you afford your best life, Lola?
My best life would include 2 international trips, maybe 3.
A year?
A year. But that's a lot. That's a lot. But actually 1 international trip, 1 or 2 domestic trips, being able to buy all the makeup that I would like at leisure without, feeling like I'm going. So no, but I also think I would spend a lot of money on unnecessary things. So I couldn't afford it, but I don't think I'm missing anything necessary. Does that make sense?
That does make sense.
I'm missing all the leisure things. I want the luxury. I just want rich people shit. That's what I want.
I don't even feel like I want rich people shit. I feel like I want human being a decent living standard shit. That's what I want.
Do you not think you're living one right now?
I feel like I'm just making it.
Okay.
If I'm being sincere, I'm not gonna say I'm not living a decent life. Yeah. But I was thinking about how our last podcast referred to people, quitting their jobs and such. And we talked about it's because of the lack of dignity. They're not getting paid the right amount. They're not getting good benefits. And I was also just but they're unable to legitimately live just decent. Just decently. When I say decently, I'm not saying that we're all homeless, because we're not all homeless. Glory be to God. Let's be grateful for what we have. I'm not saying let's not be ungrateful.
Yeah.
I'm more so saying I want people to have a living wage. And that means being able to pay your bills. That means being able to save for a rainy day. But it also means being able to save separately for your goals, whether it be buying a house, buying a car, sending your kid to a good preschool, instead of public school or something, if that's your choice.
Yeah.
And then being able to take a domestic trip if you want to, and you not be on the outs for another year and a half because of those things. Do you know what I mean?
I hear what you're saying for sure, but I think certain things I wouldn't view them as needs, like the domestic trips and stuff like that, but I'm a homebody, so certain things like that is a luxury to me. So maybe my living wage looks different from you, because I remember when I was telling you, oh, this is my goal salary wage, and you were like, huh?
Oh, y'all, we got to talk about that.
I said 60,000, and you were like, you can ask for 80, and I was like, okay, but I'm also somebody, I'm on the fence on certain things, so we'll get into it about what I'm willing to give up for maybe a lesser check, but we'll get into it.
Well, now I'm kind of curious, I'm not gonna lie.
But we'll talk about it, we'll get there.
We will. So, we did a poll, right, and we asked y'all, because, we just don't say things off the rip without your opinion.
Of course.
And we asked y'all, do you feel like you get paid enough to pay your bills, save for future goals, a rainy day, and enjoy leisurely activities on occasion? So over 50% of you said no. We also asked, do you think that you're paid enough for the job that you do?
I said no.
Yeah, over 80% of you said no. There's a common theme here.
Yeah.
And then interestingly enough, do you feel like your job provides great benefits like health or 401k?
No.
That one was actually 45% yes, and then 55% no.
Which, I mean, I'm glad to hear, because and that's one of the things, I'm willing to work on my salary if I have good benefits in the long run. But yeah, I'm glad at least 44% of y'all are getting some decent health insurance.
You know what? I think that that's something that people should mention, right? It's because a lot of the times that we talk about salary or payment, we don't factor in benefits. Mm-hmm. And I feel like you do yourself a really great disservice when you don't, because the fact is they can straight up be giving you a 6-figure salary, $100K, and if they give you no benefits, you might as well be making 50.
Yeah.
Like, because when you go to your doctor's office, there's like, oh, the co-pays, then the insurance pays. I mean, because you recently went to the doctor last year, you had insurance, and they were still charging you $1,500 for a visit.
Just the visit, and then the doctor charged me $200 separately, and I was definitely attended by a nurse, so I was like, what the f***? I mean, so I'm confused.
She said, call the doctor up. I want to get to know who this man was.
I'm like, are you eating well? Good, because I paid for your steak dinner. I had an insurance plan, and actually, that's one of the things I'm frustrated with my job is it seems like every year we're switching plans. This year, today was actually the last day to switch out, and I picked a plan. And you know what? I'm learning to invest my money in places where it needs to be. And while I'm relatively healthy, I'm going to invest into my health insurance because they gave us 3 options. And I was like, this is the devil. This is the devil's work. And I'm like, this is all right. This is where we're going right here. They had a high deductible plan of $5,000.
Christ.
And they don't pay anything until you
pay that $5,000.
Yeah. So that's the one that my employer pays. So I don't pay a premium, but literally I pay for everything out of pocket until I hit $5,000. And then certain things are like, they'll pay up to 30% after you hit the deductible. I'm like, so I'm on my own.
Yeah.
That's what it is. So I ended up choosing one where I'm like, okay, every 2 weeks I'm going to spend $85 out of, pre-tax. So I just got to tell myself, it's before taxes. It's not going to hurt as much. It still hurts. But I'm going to lie to myself where I'm going to pay every 2 weeks $85 every paycheck, and that's like a $2,000 deductible, but a lot of things are covered. And I'm like, you know what? At least this is a decent plan. And if my employer actually worked on getting us better benefits, I think longer retention time and less burnout rate for us.
Absolutely. And I feel like my friend actually applied for a job recently and she accepted it. And it wasn't the salary she wanted at all, but she was like, but they have some of the best benefits in the state. Like, they're rivaling some of the best. And she was like, when I consider employment, like, the fact of the matter is I had to take into account my vision. I had to take into account my teeth. And those things matter. And I feel like a lot of times, too, I was tempted. This was me my first year on the job. Like, my friends were like, you're so young, you're so healthy, you don't have to do these premium insurance plans. And I was like, yeah, you're totally right. And I got like the poo-poo dentist plan, of course, literally.
They're like, we can cover half of the filling.
Literally. They didn't cover them at all, actually. I have pretty good teeth. I feel like I take care of my teeth, but that was the year I had, I think, 3 cavities. And I was like, woo.
They had a quick,
they
floss your teeth, girl.
Floss your teeth. I want to shout out my friend Margaret who told me to floss, and I never had a cavity again after that. But that year, out of pocket, I spent well over $1,000 on some fillings. And I didn't even know that they were that expensive, which goes to tell you, when you're covered and you don't know the price, that's a blessing. Mm-hmm. When they start giving you like the bills, like, here's the price for your filling, I want the price for my filling, and I'm thinking, I have insurance, it's going to be $50. It was like $300 plus for a filling.
And it hurt too. So.
And then I started asking, like, what do those pay without insurance? So always consider that when we're talking about salary. I think that's also important.
Yeah.
But when we're also talking about a living wage, and I feel like you said something really important, which was like we might have different interpretations of what a living wage is. Because for you, like a domestic trip or an international trip is not a must-have, right? Yeah. And I'm not saying an international trip every year is a must-have for me, but I think that time off and time well spent are must-haves for me.
But I literally will take a week off and just do nothing in my house. And like that's time off. So that's what I mean by traveling is not a must to me.
For you, yeah.
It's nice, but like I'm just like I could also just treat myself here in the US and I'm okay with that. That's what I'm saying we might value or define it a little bit differently.
And that's fine. But when I say that I want to take off time and like treat myself well in those times, it doesn't necessarily include like a whole travel. Like I think that a staycation, like, and maybe this is me misunderstanding staycation, so please feel free to tell me. Like I'll go to a hotel in a different city.
That's not a staycation. You gotta stay in your
No, I don't want to stay in my house.
It's like a staycation's within your town.
But I mean, like a staycation for me is in state.
Okay.
And if I can't even afford to do that, like I at least want to be home and be able to eat more than ramen those 3 days. Do you know what I mean?
But are you eating ramen every day? No, that's not.
Listen.
You don't lie on these folks.
I'm not lying.
We had goat yesterday. We ate.
I broke my back for that goat. I hope you enjoyed your dinner because that was on me. But no, I mean, and first of all, ain't nobody buying goat often neither. Okay, if you're an immigrant, you know what I'm talking about.
Listen, I've had goat twice this month thanks to the Charles family. So I ate well this October.
Shay Charles does trick. But I mean, realistically, like I think within the year you should be able to take time off. And like I'm a single woman right now. I don't have kids. I don't have a partner. So like I don't have to factor that in. But I think of the people who are our age who do have partners who might even go out with just family members and be like, we can't all afford to go out. Like I know for a fact my coworker who makes more than I do was like, yeah, no, we haven't had a family vacation in some time because like my salary just can't do that. But I'm like,
her salary can't do that.
Her salary cannot do that.
Is she paying for everybody on the vacation or something?
Well, she's a parent, yes. Her kids aren't paying for themselves. They're in like their middle schoolers, high schoolers.
Okay, gotcha. I thought you meant family, like extended family, like mom and dad.
No. I'm talking about
you
mom.
You want to adopt me? Because I'm your sister too.
I mean, like mom, her kids, like her husband, they bring in a joint income, but they're like between owning a home, 2 vehicles, putting their kids through school, additional like extracurricular activities. She's like, and having healthcare, paying for that out pre-tax or not. Mm-hmm. She's just like, we can't afford to do that on an annual basis. She's like, what we can do is a staycation. Yeah. We can get, some stuff from the Kmart, blow it up in the backyard, have a good time.
Lake compounds.
Go to Lake Compound, Six Flags, what have you.
Livable wage. I don't know. This is also my thing. A lot of times I shouldn't say we all. I think there's a narrative of like, I want to get the bag. I want to be flued out. And that's all great. But like, if you don't want to be an entrepreneur, if you don't got a business, you're not going to be a millionaire, right? Like, some of us are just going to be humble folks. And I feel like sometimes there's this disconnect of like, oh, if you stay humble, that's your own fault. But like, I think that's a livable wage. She's able to send how many kids to school? And she has health insurance, and she owns a home. There are people who could barely pay their rent. She has a home.
I understand that, but I also feel like we should. No, she's not slumming it. But if she should want to take a vacation with her kids, she should be able to afford to do that because this is someone who has gone to school, got the degrees, has been in the field for 20 plus years. Mm-hmm. So like, it's not like she's fresh out the gate like you and me, doesn't have like maybe experience to be in a certain position, what have you. Like, and she has a husband who also has a salary that matches hers.
But like, we don't know their debt issue. Like, I'm not trying to assume there's a difference too. Because
I understand. Like, but take into consideration the debt an individual has, let alone that a married couple might have when it comes to their schooling, right? So they're paying off their debt, they're paying off their mortgage, they're paying off whatever their insurance doesn't cover, they're covering their kids, they're covering extracurricular activities. But, like, I think that it should be, and this is just me, and again, this might just be us having a difference of opinion of what a livable wage is. I think she should be able to take her kids out on vacation, even if it's just to Texas, even if it's just to Canada. Yeah. Like, I think that you should. I think that that's also, we have this mindset, and I don't want to conflate that with humility, right? Because people are like, oh, and I'm humble and I can do a staycation, and that's great, right? But also, in the 18-year span that a kid has, like, I'm like, it's okay to be like, I want to take you to Disney World and afford that. You know what I'm saying?
I'm not saying she has to be humble, but she has a livable wage. Livable is assuring that you have a roof over your head, that you have the food that you need, you are able to live off of it.
When I hear the word livable, I think that you are able to live a rounded human experience, which may include, to me, some luxuries and some amenities.
But okay, luxuries and amenities aren't necessities, and that's what I'm saying. Like,
but why should livable just be the necessity?
But that's the word. That's the definition of the word. We can't just change
the definition. We both got the definitions up. I was prepared for this. A wage that is high enough to maintain a normal standard of living. And if someone else, that's what I'm saying, we might define normal differently. Yeah. But I'm like, for me, I'm like,
but what's different, right? Just the luxury, because a home, your food, she has health insurance, she has transportation, she's able to buy clothes for work, she's able to buy clothes for her kids to go to school. Is she able to go out to have dinner with her boo? Maybe. We don't know. Is she able? We don't know. But the point being is, her life, if she does not go and take a vacation, is not unaffected.
So then, should she never take a vacation?
I'm not saying she should never have a vacation, but the idea that a vacation and luxuries are included in a livable wage is where I'm like, okay, we're a huge consumeristic, capitalistic society. I think it's great if we could take vacations. But also, if you can't, you can't. I don't understand why people are trying to kill themselves over these things.
So I think that my problem in general with the word livable is that I feel as though when we hear the word livable, we only think of the necessities of only the things that we need. And it might just be me, and maybe I'm on some, some hype stuff, right? But I'm also like, I feel like it's a necessity that a human being just takes a break and is allowed to explore and is allowed to actually live. Like, and it might seem frivolous, but I don't think it's frivolous. You see what I'm saying? Like,
I don't think it's frivolous
feel
either.
like a vacation with your family, like once every 2 or 3 years, is not something that's frivolous, and it shouldn't be just a staycation. You know what I'm saying?
I'm in agreement with you, but I don't think it's a necessity, right? If you don't do that, are you going to die, right?
No, but will it, I feel like, hamper your general standard of living? Yes, because I feel like I think a lot of the times we don't contribute rest and we don't contribute genuine joy and experiences as things are necessities for human beings, and I feel like they are. And I feel like like in the United States in particular, and I think that this is my problem, is that we live to work here as opposed to working in order to live. And I'm like, we have the 40-hour work week. People are working on weekends. We have, like, there's just so much. And we're already, struggling as it is.
I'm not arguing saying we don't need, like, that. I'm not saying that wanting these things are inherently bad. But I also think there's a difference between, we can't change definitions because livable and necessity means that if you don't have these things, you will no longer exist. If you don't have a roof over your head, you're susceptible to the weather, you can get sick. If you don't have food, you'll starve to death. And, like, you can have rest without going outside the country or going. All I'm saying is there's a difference in definition. That's all. And that doesn't mean that I don't want people to have good salaries and do all those things. But I also think our generation, we come from immigrant parents who didn't have us, flying out all the times, and they did the best that they could. So I think
But I think that there were repercussions. I think that many of us who do come from immigrant parents know, like, the struggle of immigrant parents who worked so hard they never came to their kids' recitals, immigrant parents who worked so hard like they were never present outside of providing the necessities. And there's so much more to parenting, there's so much more to being a human being than meeting the bare necessities. Do you know what I mean? And I understand what you're saying, like, yes, like, technically livable means we are living, but I'm like, are you living or are you surviving? That's my contention with it.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, let's not be unrealistic. The person who's a construction worker is not going to exceed an X amount of dollars. I understand that we live in a world where it's capitalism, where if you want to make an extra dollar, just find a business, figure it out. You can make that money, but people who are, there are jobs that are never going to exceed a certain cap.
Fair.
And what do you tell those people? Those people find joy in other ways. I think about people who work at Walmart their whole entire lives. They don't have a livable wage. I cannot compare what I get compared to that person. So that's why I'm saying, like, I have some luxuries. If I want to go on vacation, I could. Would it harm me? Maybe I'll be pinching some pennies. There are people who just can't afford it at all.
It's like not even considerable.
It's not even a thought process. Or they're doing it and putting themselves in a substantial amount of debt. So I think about those people. How can we talk about livable wages when there are people making $10 an hour?
But I
barely, who no longer qualify for food stamps, but it's hard to like buy fresh fruits and vegetables. That's what I think about. They don't have a livable wage. I can go to the grocery store. I can know that every month my rent is going to be paid. I know I have transportation. I have everything that I need to survive. Now, would I like some more? Yes. Please send it down my way, Jesus. I'm not arguing that. But I think we're having a very privileged conversation to talk about, oh, it's a necessity, or we should be inclined to have these things, when there are people who barely have the necessities. So I feel like that's my issue, the definitions of things. Not that we shouldn't have those things, it's just, it's very privileged of us to even have this conversation. It is.
I think that's debatable. And let me also, let me also put into parameters what I mean when I talk about a livable wage, right? Because, and like, I think that this might hurt some people's feelings, forgive me, like, but I think that there are certain jobs where you should expect these things. You see what I'm saying? Like, okay. I understand that if you're at McDonald's, if you're at Walmart, you might not have a livable salary. Like, these are jobs that you know, walking into the door, you're not taking vacations, you're not flying the Punta Cana, like you're not flying out.
And
you know
that's what I'm saying, livable wages should be, that movement should be for those folks.
Yes.
That's what I'm
So then maybe I am discussing something else.
Yeah.
When I mean like you and I who are in corporate America technically, and we're still unable to really like, because I'm thinking those people are trying to be where we're at, right? Mm-hmm. And we're like, bro, when you get up here, shit ain't easy either. It ain't sweet here too.
It's not sweet, but it's a lot sweeter than the bottom.
It's a lot sweeter, but I'm bringing into parameters the conversation that I'm talking about, which is people who are at corporate America, who are making salary position jobs, right? Who still don't have great benefits, who still can't afford to take vacations, those are the people who, when they walked in, expected something else. So if at the door they told you, like at McDonald's, like, you know, at the Taco Bell, at the Walmart, the Kmart, walking in, you knew this was not the job that was going to give you buku money.
That people could say that about social work. As somebody in social work, people talk about it all the time. That's not a job in comparison to others where you're making buku money. Are there exceptions? For sure. There are people who work in the state level. There are people who work, what is it called? Corporate social responsibility. Yeah. There are exceptions, but as a whole, the idea that social work is a job that brings lots of money is not it's, people talk about it's a giving job, that you're doing this because you genuinely want to do it, not because you're in it for the money, right? So someone could tell me like, well, what did you expect? Why would you ever in your life pursue a career knowing what it possibly could not give you?
That is the question. Why pursue a career that you know it could not give you the life you want to live?
But this is why I was talking about this conversation, is like, I'm not good at math. I wasn't going to be an engineer. I don't like science, so I couldn't be a nurse. Those are things that don't interest me, and this is something that I genuinely like, and I feel like I'm genuinely good at, right? So am I going to pick a profession that's going to make me unhappy? Oh, I could be an attorney, but then I could hate my job. I could take all the vacations in the world and still be miserable because I know after that vacation, I have to come back. All I'm saying is, yes, you could tell people, look at these high-tier jobs with these amazing salaries. But if they, A, don't have the interest, or B, have the skills, we don't want random people being doctors, okay?
Or nurses, and I agree with you. And I'm not saying everyone has to pursue a high-tier job. I'm saying for social work, and this is the problem. I feel like for the requirements of a social worker, you should, by default, have a real livable salary. And let me tell you why. Because you went and got a 4-year degree. You might have gotten a master's. You might have gotten a license depending on where you're working, right? Those are all things that took training, that took time, that took money. And in return for your service, you should be getting paid more for that. Feel me? I don't feel like social workers, I don't feel like even teachers sometimes get paid what they are worth. And I think that the conversation that I'm trying to have is, we need to push for certain jobs to get paid what they are worth.
Okay, so that's the conversation. It's not about a livable wage. I'm just saying
because people deserve to have livable wages, and that to me. And yes, I'm going by my definition of livable. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, but Esther's definition isn't the actual definition, and that's okay.
Debatable.
It's not debatable if we look it up on the dictionary.
I looked it up and interpreted it differently.
Okay, but your interpretation is not the definition, ma'am. All I'm telling you is that there is a movement for livable wages, and we are not I think, again, being paid what we're worth is different from asking for a livable wage. That's all I'm saying, and I think it's very privileged of us to confuse the two or mix them, because literally that's not the same thing. Okay, that's what I'm trying to say, baby. That's all I was trying to say.
No, actually, you're right.
Pay us what we're worth. Just pay us what we're worth.
Okay, so here's my follow-up question then, because, and now you've got me thinking. So I'm like, for the jobs that are not getting paid livable wages, and you hear the argument, where do you land on that spectrum?
I think it's really sad, especially when there are jobs where people are risking their lives. I think about CNAs, certified nurses assistants, or even medical assistants who work with nurses, right? Granted, they don't have the same education level, and they're not expected to do certain things that nurses are, but they're also expected to do a lot of the dirty work that nurses aren't expected to do. Right now, if they're in COVID, they're the ones who also putting themselves on risk to get sick. There are jobs where people don't value them because they think you're beneath a certain career, and I think that's unfair. I think that's wrong. I don't think it's right that you give someone a CNA job, they're working 40, 50 hours a week, lifting patients twice their size for $10. It's disrespectful, and they don't get great benefits. And those people who don't live on a livable wage, there's a gap, right? There's people who just barely make enough that they still qualify for Medicaid and SNAP. And then there are people who just make a little bit more. So now they're they make too much money for state programs, but they're still slumming it. So that's why I'm like, that's just a disrespectful thing to this country, to have people who are actually working and trying to make a better life for themselves still be punished. And then be told, well, you should just get a better job. You should go get an education. Well, guess what? Some people can't do that. Some people have other responsibilities. Some people don't want to take on student loan debt. Some people are like, you know what? This is my passion is. This is what I'm good at. I don't think it's right that we diminish certain jobs because we feel like, well, you don't have the education level.
I feel like in that particular scenario, absolutely. And that for me, I feel like whenever you're working in healthcare, when your life is literally at jeopardy, then absolutely pay me what I'm worth. Because now I'm putting myself on the line, and you can't put a price tag on me. But in the reality of the situation in capitalism, give me a price that honors the fact that I'm putting my life on the line every day. Exactly. I think that applies also to civil servants like officers, firefighters, etc. Again, teachers, if you ask me, do the same thing. But what I meant was, because I do have other people on the spectrum, I think we all know other people on the spectrum who are working the Kmarts, who are working the McDonald's, who are working those jobs, and their story is, I just didn't get a degree after school, but I want to be making $25 an hour, which is what other people are making after experience, after education. And I can understand like the malalignment there.
I can see that.
So I feel like it's a hard ball to juggle because I really do understand both sides of the spectrum, because no one wants to say, well, my time is worth more than yours. However, the fact of the matter is, if people have gone to school, if people have gotten experience for certain things, and again, like, that's not considering the whole your life is in jeopardy. Like, this is if we're all working, you know, a regular job, then yeah, like, people expect to be paid. If I'm going to be sitting behind a desk for 10 hours, 12 hours in a day, I'm like, okay, I could understand why someone who went and got their computer science degree wants to be paid more perhaps than someone working at the McDonald's, because McDonald's is also offering $21 to $25 an hour now.
Which McDonald's are these?
Oh yeah, they're because people are quitting so often, like, because they're not offering benefits. They're like, we're raising the pay, but then
that's a livable wage argument. That's why I was like telling you, like, this is for people regardless of where you fall on the spectrum. Right now, the national minimum wage is 7 something. That's for all the states. Obviously, each state is different. But my thing is, yes, I understand that for someone who went to school, got a degree, you know, put their heart, their sweat and their blood and their tears into their degree, wanting to be paid, and then to think, oh, well, if I hadn't elected to do this, and if I just simply wanted to work at a minimum wage job, I wouldn't be making the same amount of money. It feels like a slap in the face. But the whole purpose of a livable wage is saying, regardless of where you are in life, whether you're the cook at McDonald's or maybe you're the owner or whatever, you should be able to afford to live.
Yes.
And that is where they're asking for more, where to live, you need to be making at least, I think $16 an hour is a stretch,
yeah.
But like that's the beginning of having a livable wage of, okay, I could pay my rent, have enough food, and yes, I will be struggling. I won't be taking a vacation once a year, but I know that for a fact.
I think that's fine. I think because I don't know if you've seen this, like people are on Instagram, like people like who protest and they're like, oh, like, because for the other jobs, for example, who are not McDonald's, because McDonald's makes buku money. Like, they're billionaires, you know what I'm saying?
Also, like, people getting paid for McDonald's payroll, like, if I work in a nonprofit, McDonald's workers getting paid more has nothing to do with me, really, because it has something to do with my nonprofit. It has something to do with me and my people's not saying, hey, y'all aren't paying me my worth.
Dude, and
don't wait till the people down there get paid more because they advocated for themselves to be like, well, if they're in McDonald's making $16 an hour and I'm over here, then you should have felt that way the whole entire time.
I feel like they did feel that way the whole entire time.
Don't be mad that other people are advocating for
themselves.
I don't
think it's an issue of other people. They're frustrated that other people are advocating themselves. I feel like it's a matter of people have been advocating and they've not been listened to, and now as the pay gaps close, they're like, I really just didn't need this degree. I didn't need to waste my time. I didn't need to be here. Mm-hmm. And that's the reality that people are facing that are making them uncomfortable, which I feel like in turn makes them turn around like, you don't deserve this. Like, you shouldn't do this. Stupid. And then it becomes like an issue between, I guess, classes, if you would. And I don't feel, and I don't feel like it should be an issue between classes. Again, I feel like my frustration is more so at these corporations, at these businesses that do have the funds, because I get if you're a mom and pop shop, I get that situation, right? But when we look at corporate America, most of y'all do have the funds to pay employees real life salaries or wages that can allow them to be like, not only am I living, but if I take a trip, you know, from one state to the next with my kids, I'm not out of money for the next however so many period of times. You know what I'm saying?
I think, unfortunately, and this is the saddest part about it, is these corporations don't care about their people. If you notice, if you've been to Target, if you've been to Stop and Shop, ShopRite, your shelves are empty. Listen. Yeah. There's an issue that we don't have anybody in the ports to bring the goods to the stores. And that is just an example of what happens when you outsource, right? We don't make any of our own stuff here. Everything's are made out of this country. And you know what happened? It was because people were like, it's cheaper to pay someone in China $1 something and have them work for 40, 50 hours straight without a break. So I don't get mad at the worker. I think, like you said, we need to take it up to these corporations. These corporations don't care about nobody but themselves. The CEO loves his check, and he loves his check first and foremost.
Absolutely.
And if it is about to stop his check, he'll care. Or she'll care. Because it could be a she. Or they. Or whoever. It could be whoever. Yeah. But the point being is, they're the issue, like you mentioned. Not everybody else.
And so then I guess my final question is then how do we get these corporations to listen? Is there a way? Because now we're seeing all of these people quitting, right? But is that really going to solve the problem if you're just going to go over to the next job and have the same level of turnover? Go over to the next job, have the same level of turnover. Like, I feel like at this point, it's an endless fight. It's cyclical.
Yeah, I think one of the things, unfortunately, is that we don't have a lot of union jobs. If we unionize,
and they make it that way. If you look at your contracts for some of y'all who work in corporate America, yeah, you can't do that.
But if you can, or if you're able to like find some loopholes, but I do think that employees need to understand that their employers are always going to look out for themselves and don't feel like you owe them a loyalty. That's why I do like the whole Great Resignation. It's like, you know what? This check might be keeping me afloat, but it's not worth me slaving away. I'm not a slave, and I'm worth more than this.
And I think that you also said something prior to even this conversation when you were talking about social media kind of influence the way that we see what a livable wage is. Which I guess in my that could be my situation is I'm like, livable to me means my version of livable, but livable wage in and of itself has an entirely different meaning. Yeah. Did you want to elaborate on that?
So I think when we see people with these photos where they're wearing a new outfit every time, or they're going to a new restaurant, and it happens so frequently, right? That you're thinking about this. It's not like they're waiting a month or two to fly out. It just seems like repetitively that they're spending all this exuberant amount of money, and it's like, well, this person's my age, they're in my demographic. Well, if they can do it, why can't I?
And they're kind of setting, like, I think, especially when we look at Instagram, they're kind of setting a benchmark as for what your life should look like ideally. And I think that it's become like a real situation, because I specifically think of, when it comes to women, the money we spend just to go out, like outfits and stuff. And there's now an issue, I don't know what they're referring it to as, like, people are throwing away clothes at a ridiculous rate now.
There was a video I was watching, people didn't buy this many articles of clothes.
They did not.
You bought like maybe one good pants for the winter, for the summer, and you repeated your clothes. And that's what I meant by we as Americans consume so much. So when we talk about a livable wage, I'm like, livable wage what? To buy more clothes from Shein? To be able to go to brunch? Like, and those are great things if you can afford it. But is this what we're chasing? Because that's not a livable wage, baby. That's luxury. That is actual luxury, to say I can buy these clothes not because I need them, because I want them, because I want to look cute for this one event, and I'm going to cause more environmental waste.
Harm, yeah.
Like, that is not asking for a livable wage. You're asking for luxury. You low-key don't want to eat the rich. You want to be the rich. Think about it, sis.
I think you're absolutely, like, correct. Like, I will back you up there, right? Mm-hmm. And that, for me, when I think of livable wage, I don't even think about necessarily the material things. When I think about it, I'm like, spend time with your family, get to know yourself, like things that will actually contribute to your experience as a human being. I think that's what I refer to. Mm-hmm. So, like, okay, so when we talk about the pay gap, it's not because someone below you is like, I deserve this, and you don't deserve something else. It's a matter of, you need to advocate for your situation at your company, because maybe they don't care about you.
They don't.
And the fact is, maybe we shouldn't be depending on others to pay us too. Like, again, like, become an entrepreneur. Get your side hustles if you can. Because I also get it. People are busy. Like, the whole side hustle theory and, movement. It's not for everyone. But also, too, like, if that's what you're aspiring to live, and that's a life you're aspiring to achieve, then, like, like, you might need an extra side hustle.
Yeah. And that's what I meant by, like, what I'm willing to give and what I'm not. I don't want that vacation that bad where I'm losing sleep weekly. Like, if a side hustle means I got to give out another 10, 15 hours a week, I don't want to go to Fiji. The idea of flying out 24 hours somewhere to be there for a week, to come back to do more, the amount of work I have to do for that little is not worth it.
But you know what?
Some people, that's what keeps them going. And I'm not trying to say that shouldn't be your motivation. But for me, I'm like, I don't like anything that much.
For me, it's different in that I feel like I work so much. Like, the hours that I give are not the standard 40 hours. I feel like I'm always running when I do stuff, right? And so for me, I'm like, if you're going to take this much of my time, then you need to pay me the value of my time.
I agree, but I also feel like I'm less attached. Like, when 4 o'clock hits,
I don't even know the kinds of jobs that let you get up 4. To this day, your job baffles me, because I'm like, 4 p.m.?
I leave. There are people who say after 4 o'clock, after the time, and I'm like, that's fine.
But the standard time everywhere was like 8 to 5.
No, I think it depends. We have 8 to 4 or 8:30 to 4:30. And you can stay there till 5, but I'm not.
It's the little blessings for me.
I have horrible health insurance, so
true.
So it all balances itself out. So
does it?
Allegedly. Yeah.
But that's it for today's podcast, y'all. We will catch you the next time. Let us know how you feel in the comments. Do you feel like you're getting paid more? What's your understanding of a livable wage? Let us know. As usual, be sure to like, follow, subscribe, and hit us up, y'all. We want to hear from you.
Exactly. Catch you the next time. Bom dia.
Bye.